Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions Deep Dive TV Podcast with my co-host Stacie here talking about the original Quantum Leap, Season 5, Episode 9, titled Trilogy, Part 3, The Last Door. This is the last trilogy episode. The episode's description reads as follows. Sam leaps into Abigail Spoller's attorney in a murder trial with personal implications. The episode was written by Deborah Pratt. This is her final, of course, writing effort on this particular trilogy because this is the last episode, so I'm not even sure why I'm saying that. But we got a special little announcement. We are actually talking to Deborah Pratt in an interview about this trilogy.
Yeah.
Which you should be able to see next week in the time slot that you would usually be seeing Quantum Leap podcast. We are instead doing dropping that interview, unless of course you can't wait to see this interview and you just have to see it now. You absolutely can. You just have to join the Quantum Productions membership at the level in which the $4.99 level to get early access. So if you want to see that interview, it's a great interview, a lot of fun. You should check it out. You can see it right now if you're early access member.
Yeah, and it's exciting stuff.
Yes.
And even if you're not early access, make sure you come back next week to check that one out. Because Trilogy's so awesome, we're not spending just 3 weeks on it, but we're going to spend a fourth week on it.
Yep, absolutely. The episode was also directed by James Whitmore Jr., and the episode takes place on November 28th, 1978, which I believe is 12 years after the previous episode.
Yep.
Okay. And originally aired on November 24th, 1992. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a spoiler podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discoverable, Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel. All right, shout-outs this week. Mimi Gallup. She thought that our podcast was great for a great episode. She also loves the trilogy. Doctor Who, also known as Bob Smith, thanked us for addressing his comment last week. And of course, Bob, if you drop a comment, you become a part of the conversation. And Ashley Wright found both the trivia that we did and the podcast we did on Deliver Us from Evil as entertaining. Thank you for that, Ashley Wright. And you have one last shout out.
Sounds like Ashley might be a little bit behind.
Yes, Ashley Wright has been behind for a while now. But nevertheless, it's always good to hear from him. And you have one
yes, we have a happy birthday shout out for J.D. Schwartz. He's Scott Bakula's longtime publicist. We had the honor of meeting him last year at the Connector.
We did.
And his birthday was on Friday, March 21st.
And I would say that his fingerprints are still on my phone, but that was actually a phone ago, so that's no wonder.
You go through phones a lot.
Yes, unfortunately I do.
You're quite accident prone.
Yes, I am, as I've been throughout my entire life. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on the final episode of the trilogy?
I love how the story comes together. This is where all the things that we've been building up in the last two episodes, we finally put all the pieces together. We get the trial. We get Kimberly Cullum coming back. Love her. And, of course, she's playing a different character, which is super cool. She does a great job pulling off a second character. It does not feel like she's the same child.
No. That's the thing, is she's an amazing actress. She pulled off two distinct characters within this trilogy.
We get another super creepy, super awesome performance by Meg Foster. I absolutely love her whole, thing in the trial. The whole big reveal,
Yep.
We finally find out what happened to Violet, and I just love it. I love how it all comes together. I love the whole, the way the story is just orchestrated and plays out.
Yeah, it's a great episode. I have one beef, and that is with the final scene of the episode.
Okay.
And it's not it's a common problem with television in general when it comes to presenting trials and courtroom dramas. Sam would not be able to go on and on and on and on,
right,
monologuing like he does.
I definitely have that in my notes, where he's doing things that should have been objected to.
Yes.
That's not the way a trial works.
I mean, it's all very dramatic, it's all very fun, but it's not. It's just, and again, that's not something that's unique to this episode. That is something that happens in quite a few pieces of media. I think there's only and Sullivan's Crossing was even more guilty of this, but. Also, there's one line in this trilogy that's really underplayed that completely recontextualizes the character of Clayton Fuller. Like, you kind of realize maybe this wasn't such a great guy based on the things that he actually did to protect his wife at the expense of his child and basically everybody else, too, at the same time.
Yeah, but then remember, he died.
Yes.
So he didn't get saved.
No, and maybe that's why. Maybe he was being punished for his actions. But we'll get more into that later on. Anything else to say before diving in?
I want to talk about the deleted scenes.
Yes.
The fact that they exist.
I watched them.
Okay, so, as we talked about last week, parts 2 and 3 originally aired as a movie-length feature. And since then, in syndication, they were split up into 2 separate episodes. They're generally looked at as 2 separate episodes. They're listed as 2 separate episodes on IMDb and on streaming, and even Al's Place has them listed as 2 separate episodes.
It's the same same with the Leap Home and the Leap Back and Lee Harvey Oswald and so on.
But those, there's always some sources that keep them lumped. Trilogy, you never really see them listed, Trilogy 2 and 3.
Right.
They're always separated. In everything I've seen anyways. But interestingly, what happened is a whole bunch of footage got cut when they separated from the movie length to the 2, TV episodes. And this, like you said, the same thing happened with the other, like Genesis in particular. I remember when we last revisited Genesis and we're like, wait a minute, there's this whole like big part of the plot missing when you watch it in 2 parts.
Right.
So yeah, there's. I didn't write down the length of the video. I want to say it was like 7 or 8 minutes.
It was like 9 minutes.
So it was lengthy. It's a lengthy video. It is on Al's Place. It's on the part 3, maybe the part 2 as well. I'm not sure, but it's definitely on the part 3 episode guide.
Yeah.
And you can watch that there. And I don't know if I ever saw the movie version or not. I know you said you remember watching it originally.
Pretty sure. I don't have clear memories of it.
I may have watched it the night it premiered in one part, but I don't know for sure if I ever did or not. But definitely it's not something I revisited. I hadn't seen this particular clip of deleted scenes before. And it was super cool to watch.
Yes.
And especially, as we're watching this and taking the notes, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Well, there's the reason that Doc Kinman is credited.
He's credited on both Internet Movie Database and within the episode itself.
Right, and that's because the credits were for the movie.
Right.
They didn't redo the credits for the individual episodes.
But they basically cut out Max Wright's character.
They cut out his scenes from this episode.
Right.
And when we were first looking at, what episodes people were in when we were looking at part 1, we were like, oh, it must be a flashback, right? Because the whole trilogy is full of flashbacks. But then, no, you watch this deleted scene, he was in the courtroom. He was helping Sam Larry Stanton with his heart problems.
Right, yes.
And we don't get that when you watch the current available cut up version.
Right.
I don't even know if I don't know if that movie version still exists anywhere. If any of the different DVD sets kept it.
I'm not sure.
That I know of.
Right.
That would be something
I've only seen
looking into a little more, is if that version is accessible anywhere.
Right.
Like the full uncut version.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this compilation of them is on Al's Place, and I'm pretty sure during trivia, Hayden told us that Matt is the one that provided that. He got a hold of it.
Okay.
Matt Dale. So it's definitely worth a look, especially if you've never seen it before. Go check that out. And it's going to fill in some little gaps in the story, including things like dates.
Right.
It tells us not a specific date, but the month that Violet died.
Mm-hmm. Which is?
June 1953. Which
would be...
confirms it's before Sam was born.
Okay, all right. So Doctor Who, a good catch there.
Yeah, if you go by the strict decision that Sam cannot leap before his own lifetime, and
even though that's been contradicted.
Right, even though it was contradicted in early seasons before his birth date was established, and the reason given was kind of like he was, in utero already, and there's this kind of wishy-washy thing, because I remember countering then why the moment of his birth being a big deal for Mirror Image is a thing.
Yes.
Either way, though, that's as good as an explanation as any, as it was before his lifetime. So he couldn't have gone there. He could not have saved Violet.
Absolutely. All right, so anything else before diving in?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Let's just go into the scene by scene.
All right, so Sam leaps in. He's sitting in a chair, reading a newspaper, realizing he's still in Louisiana. He's monologuing that this isn't over, that he knows Abigail has brought him back in. He realizes he's left into Larry Stanton, as we see his mirror image. His final appearance, W.K. Stratton's final appearance in this series, is as a mirror image. And we see a flashback to Stanton defending Abigail in the sheriff's office. He's soon joined by his wife. He's trying to roleplay, or she's trying to roleplay, and seduce him, and Sam says, "Oh boy," and credits. And she's played by Diana Bellamy, 93 credits for her, including the movie Outbreak, an episode of Wings, and Air Force One. She died on June 17th, 2001 at the age of 57.
She was in 4 episodes of Married with Children, an episode of Newhart, and 2 episodes of Baywatch as well.
Now, this is another thing I don't really like about the trilogy. Or specifically speaking, this episode, this opening, I don't kind of like the humor that they play at Larry Stanton's wife's expense. It's kind of low-hanging fruit to me. It's not like the kind of thing that I particularly like when we're dealing with humor. But when we come back from the credits, she's still trying to seduce him. Sam's not into it. He asks him why he asks why he's there, and she starts to get angry with him, expects him to stop her from leaving, and when he doesn't, she says she's calling her mother. Al appears 4 minutes and 28 seconds of the episode, calling Larry Stanton a yo-ho who thinks he's dead and going to hell for overcharging his hours.
Yeah, in the waiting room.
Yes,
that is the Larry that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Al also mentions that Larry has a lucrative law practice in Baton Rouge. And I think that's an important thing to bring up because we're about to be told by Sherry Lynn that he's retired.
Right, yes.
According to Al, he has a lucrative practice right now.
Well, it's probably because she's lying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She is lying.
Yes.
According to, the information we are given.
Right. So Sam asks him if he remembers Larry Stanton, and Sam vaguely remembers the events of the last episode, specifically Abigail about to be hung, and Larry Stanton trying to stop it, in which actually Sam was not even present for. That was before Sam even got there. But both of Larry Stanton's wife's husbands died.
Sherry Lynn's husband.
Yes.
Okay, so we're told that Sherry Lynn's 51 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to bring that conversation up again, but...
Okay, but she died in 2001 at the age of 57, so she was around that age.
I don't like it.
I know, I get it, I understand.
She does not look...
Yes.
Like she is less than a decade older than us.
She definitely looks like she's more in her 60s than anything else, but...
Yeah. Okay, so she's 51. Larry's her second husband. And Al very strangely says she killed her first one at the age of 17.
Right.
But then we learned that he was 77 years old and died of a heart attack.
Right.
So does Al mean that...
Died during intimate circumstances?
Yeah. Is that what he meant?
I guess.
That's how she killed him?
Right.
Because it certainly wasn't murder if he died from a heart attack.
Right. Nope. And Stanton himself is going to die of a heart attack as well. They hear a doorbell. Al says he has no idea why he's there, so he suggests opening the door and see what drips in. Meanwhile, his wife is being all dramatic, being like, I can't get the door right now because I'm too upset. So Sam goes to the door, and it turns out to be Marie Billings. Sam takes a moment to recognize her, but eventually catches on that she's here because of Abigail. Violet's bones were discovered, and Sam thinks that she's being tried for that. No one will take her case, and the trial is supposed to start tomorrow. His wife comes out to say her husband is retired, and then calls Marie the N-word, basically saying N-trash. I'm not going to say the word. But Sam apologizes on her behalf and then shoos his wife away.
Yeah, he tells her, go make lemonade, take your time.
It's funny because, we are in the South, and in several episodes based in the South, it was, saw a lot of obvious racism.
Right.
This is the
and
only...
a lot of Democrat episodes
exactly.
As well.
This is the only example of there being so much overt racism in this trilogy,
right.
Which is kind of interesting to me. So Al thinks that Sam is there to take the case. Violet's bones were found in the sealed well, and the lawyer could not try Abigail for the murder of Violet. So Lita Ader was found with her throat cut on her kitchen floor. Al realized
on Abigail's kitchen floor.
Right. Al realizes she's being tried for the murder of Lita Ader, and she's going to be executed for that.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to talk about, it's clearly a mistake. During Marie's whole discussion here, she says, Violet's bones were found last week. So throughout my notes, I'm constantly going, how did all that happen in a week? That doesn't make any sense. By the time we get to the end of the episode, we see that was clearly, she's wrong. Whether Marie is wrong or it was a slip of, the lines that never got fixed, they're not saying it's only been a week. Because by the time we get to actual dates of the trial and stuff, it's not a week, it's months. But she very clearly says Violet's bones were found last week, which doesn't make any sense. Right. So that was my constant notes, which again, by the end of the episode, we realize that's the part that we can say is wrong and not
the entire
timeline of the episode. Right. But if you're going by heart by what she says, you're left saying, how in 1 week did Lita Ader try putting a case together against Abigail for Violet's death? Lita Ader died. Abigail was arrested. We're soon going to learn Abigail's already had 2 extensions before her trial. Right. And now the trial's tomorrow.
Right. So yeah, like...
that would have been a pretty swift timeline if the bones were discovered last week.
Yeah, no, so, we could chalk this up to Marie being kind of senile. Because she's up there in age at this point.
Or it's like last week's Lita Ader saying she killed my boy.
Right, yeah. So Sam is horrified, goes to pack his things. Al realizes that he's still in love with Abigail. Sam asks if taking the case changed history, because he figured it would. And nope, not according to Al, not unless he does something to change it.
We also learned that the lawyer that's prosecuting is who Lita had actually already talked to before her death. His name's Denton Waters, and he's never lost a single case.
Whoa.
So this is a tall order.
Yes.
This is a tall order that Sam's taking on, are not a lawyer. Sam Beckett, although he has played one before.
Now, I'm kind of curious if the reason why Sam is here to make sure that Larry is going to take the case, the reason why he didn't initially take the case is probably because of his wife.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. And you know what? I'm really glad Sherry Lynn does not go with. Because I've had enough of her already.
Yeah, she's a very unpleasant character, for sure.
Oh, we also were told that Violet disappeared 2 years before Larry moved to Pottersville. Which means, in part 1, he was brand new in town. He had just moved there 2 years after the disappearance of Violet. Yes. And that kind of explains some stuff during part 1. A little bit of how Bo was short with him, and the whole,
he was kind of an outsider
here. Right, he wasn't a local. He had just moved there. So I feel like maybe they would have been a little more accepting of him if he had, if they knew him better. But he was brand new. They were just kind of like, this, go away. This isn't your town.
Right, yeah. So Sam arrives back in town, narrating that Violet Ader had waited 25 years for someone to find her, and that they finally had. Fate had brought him back to prove Abigail's innocence once and for all. And we do see a shot of the well at this point.
Yes.
Sam goes into Sheriff's office, where he encounters Bo, played for the final time by Stephen Lee, who's asking why Stanton looks so much older while he looks so young. And, at this point, he's got a mustache, and he's very gray. Also with him is Denton Waters, played by James Green. 119 credits for him, including Star Trek Deep Space Nine as a Bajoran monk on the 6th season episode, The Reckoning. Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek TNG, and 3 episodes of Briscoe County Jr. He died on November 9th, 1981.
He also was in 16 episodes of Parks and Recreation.
Sam and Denton exchange pleasantries, talk about the incident with Abigail when she was almost hung. Stanton left the very next day. Abigail comes out saying she always admired him for leaving, refusing to live in a town so backward, and Sam calls her Mrs. Kimmon, but no, she is not, in fact, Will's wife. Will left, and the two of them never made it to the altar, and I'm kind of very curious as to when Will left. Was it, immediately?
They make it sound pretty immediately.
Right.
Because otherwise, why didn't they get married?
Right,
their wedding date had already come and gone.
Not to mention, you have to kind of question whether Will knows anything about the fact that he might have a child.
Yeah, we don't address that. Does he know she was pregnant and that's why he left?
Right.
Or did he leave and never look back?
And basically never realized that she was even pregnant?
Right. Either way, yeah, we're making sure Will is not in their life.
Right.
We're told that Will moved west to write a book. And I'm really curious what that book was about. Maybe being abducted by aliens?
Perhaps. Maybe that's why he left all of a sudden, because of his memories of being in the waiting room.
Yeah.
So Denton decides to leave. Sam talks about a continuance, but Denton says there's already been 2, and a third is out of the question. Okay, here's another little quibble. This would not be Denton's decision. This would be a judge's decision whether to grant another continuance or not. But Denton says he needs the rest of the files and tells Bo to make sure Sam gets them too, so that they can't declare a mistrial. Bo has them use his office to talk. Abigail says she's glad he came back. Sam says he never should have left. And of course, this is very different conversation the two of them are having. But Abigail has arranged for him to stay at her house and has him take some bills home, which is interesting because that seems like it's just a throwaway moment, but it actually is important. It becomes
very important.
Yes.
But also, why does she even have a stack of bills? She's like under arrest right now. She's in police custody.
I guess maybe Marie is bringing her bills.
She's like, these don't seem important right now. Can you bring them home for me, lawyer?
Right. So he asks about Will. She says, 1 minute they were very much in love, and the next he went out west to write a book. I'm wondering if, like I said earlier, like we were just talking about, is that literal? Is it like Sam left out and they were no longer in love?
Right. Or maybe it was a few months later. Maybe he left while she was pregnant. Maybe he left after the baby was born. We never get any real answers to that.
Well, I mean, no, because if he left right after, Sam and Joe would still not know him. But anyway. He asks about, so we already went to that. She asks him if she should be afraid. He says only if she's guilty. And she says she arrived at the home at 3 p.m. The house was a mess, and that's when she found Lita. And then Bo showed up saying he got a call about a woman screaming, and this call did not come from Abigail.
Right. She said she didn't call the police. She didn't have a chance to. She was still absorbing the situation.
Like in shock.
And Bo showed up at her door.
They talk about Violet being found and Lita's case not being pursued. Abigail questions if she, so Abigail is pretty much questioning whether she remembers events wrong, remembering it the way that she wanted to, at least as far as Abigail is concerned.
So we're talking about Violet and Bart, and she's like, everybody was always so sure I did something. Maybe I did. Like, she doesn't trust her own memory. That's how guilty this community has made her feel for her entire life.
Right. So Sam says in his narration that he wanted to hold her, but with Abigail, he always wanted more. She asks him if he's all right. She laughs. She says for a moment, in his eyes, she does not finish saying what she was going to say, but it's clear that she recognizes...
Yeah, she sees something in his eyes, which was interesting.
Yeah, something that she previously saw in Will's eyes, is the implication. She explains that a workman dropped his watch or something, and that was when the bones of Violet were discovered. Sam asks her to remember everything about Violet and Bart's history, or her history with them, rather. She starts by talking about Violet. They weren't exactly friends. They were more like rivals. We see the flashback again. We go over the whole Locket thing. And adult Abigail, basically from adult Abigail's perspective of it. She says she didn't like Violet, but she didn't kill her. She cries, and Sam holds her. And I hope he refrains from doing anything else in that moment. So Sam returns to Abigail's. Marie is sleeping on the couch. We do kind of see her in the background. If you really look for her, you can see her. And it always kind of confused me where Marie came from at the moment that she popped up and said they're all going to turn into pumpkins. But she's actually literally getting off the couch after taking a nap.
Yeah, she's asleep.
Yep. So
she's an old woman. She needs to rest. It's been a long day.
Exactly.
She went to Baton Rouge.
Yes. Yep. So he's shocked to see who he thinks is Abigail, but it's actually...
It's Kimberly Colum.
Sammy Joe.
And he says, Abigail?
Right.
And she's like, yes, Abigail's my mother.
Sam promises he's not going to let anything happen to her, and accidentally gives his own name before correcting. And it's kind of funny because Sammy Joe will remember that and basically call him Sam Larry Stanton.
Yes, that is his name, Sam Larry Stanton. It's how he introduced himself, very formally. I'm
actually kind of curious how she ended up with the name Sammy. Short for Samantha, obviously.
Josephine Fuller. Al's going to soon tell us that's her full name.
How did Abigail come up with that?
It must have been a cosmic coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess
so.
the same way that the very first, person whose life Sam saved was Samantha Stratton.
Right. Yeah.
She was, supposed to die in birth.
Yes.
And Sam saved her, and she grew up to be an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was named Samantha.
Right.
It's kismet.
All right. So, where am I? Okay. Al says he's not there just to save Abigail. He's there to save Sammy Jo. There's a 91% chance she's his daughter. We see Sam reacting to this emotionally, and Scott Bakula does a fabulous job here. He doesn't say a word. He's basically just looking at Al as Al is giving him this information and he's reacting emotionally.
And I find it a little odd that the project would be so forward with giving him this information. Mm-hmm. It seems out of character.
It does.
Usually it's all about, we can't tell you anything you don't already know.
Right.
But yeah, Al's very quick to be like, yeah, we think she's your kid. Because she has 194 IQ.
But she's so traumatized by what happened to her mother that she ends up dropping out, I'm assuming of high school, or actually school altogether.
Yeah.
I'm not really clear on that. And is writing manuals for some rinky-dink company.
Computer manuals in Mobile, Alabama.
So Sam reacts to this out loud like, no! Like, that would be the worst fate ever. Not even like she died. She's just, writing...
She's not living up to her potential.
Right. I understand that. And so he has to cover himself again by saying, no way am I keeping up a 10-year-old girl up so late. And she actually says that she's 11, and she isn't staying there. She's going to Marie's, who wakes up at this point, gets up off the couch, and temporarily forgets about what happened in the kitchen. Basically trying to send Sammy Jo in there to get something for Sam. And she starts freaking out before basically Marie's like, I'm sorry,
Yeah, because, there was a dead body found in the kitchen. And we'll later learn it's even more than that of why Sammy Jo's so traumatized about the idea of going into the kitchen.
Right. So before she leaves, she asks Sam if she will see him tomorrow, and Sam says that she will. Sam marvels that...
He says, Marie says, I don't want you anywhere near the courthouse.
Right.
Sammy Jo has been forbidden from going to the courthouse.
Which, of course, she's
not going to listen.
Nope.
As usual, Marie's not the best babysitter. Nope. She wasn't in part 1 when Abigail ran away to go die in fire.
Right.
She's not very good at keeping her away from the courthouse either. But what Sam says to her is, I'll be right here every day after 5 o'clock, and I'll be sad if you don't come visit me.
Right, yes. Sam marvels that he has a daughter to Al. And then the next day we begin the trial.
And this is where you can insert a big part of the deleted scenes.
Yes.
In the deleted version, Denton gives his opening statements. This is where he's talking about Violet and Bart and even Retta. Sam tries objecting and saying, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about Lita Ader's death. He's shot down because you're not allowed to object to opening statements.
Right.
And this is the part where they announce that Violet died in June of 1953.
Okay. So the judge is played by Parley Bear, 287 credits for him. One of his first credits was the 1950 film The Kid from Texas. He was also in a Star Trek Voyager episode and the movie Dave.
He was in 4 episodes of Green Acres, 5 episodes of The Lucy Show, 2 episodes of I Love Lucy, and he was also in another Quantum Leap episode. He played Dr. Rogers in 8.5 Months.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So he died on November 22nd, 2002 at the age of 88. I'm going to give a couple other shout-outs for people who passed away. Fran Bennett, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but she died on September 12th.
And that's Marie Billings.
Yes. September 12th at the age of 44. I'm sorry, 84 in 2021. Stephen Lee, November 14th, 2014 at the age of 57. W.K. Stratton is still alive. He's no longer acting, apparently. I was trying to track down anything that he's done in recent times, but no, he's very much retired. I thought there was another W.K. Stratton that was actually an author of a Wild Bunch book, but I don't think it's the same guy. So Sam does his opening summation. He says the only reason they are there... Oh, also, no longer alive, is the woman who played Lita Ader, Mary Gordon... What was her...
Lita Ader. Mary Gordon Murray.
Yeah, and I forgot to take note of when she died, but she's also passed away. So quite a few of these actors are no longer with us. And that's not really surprising because this is a 30-year-old piece of television.
Yeah, and a lot of these characters were already
pretty old.
quite up there. Yeah.
Sam does his opening narration summation. He says the only reason that they are there is that for the reason of the murder of Rita Ader. Violet and Bart have nothing to do with this trial, since she isn't. He basically makes the argument that it has never been proven that she killed Violet and that she had nothing to do with Bart's death. So therefore, she has no motive to kill Rita Ader, because the only reason that she would have to kill Rita Ader is if Rita Ader perhaps had a case against her, and she very much does not.
Right.
Because
it's brought up that even if she had killed them, which she didn't, there would still be no case because she would have been a minor when it happened, and they can't try her.
He tells them they have a very difficult task ahead, to throw out the rumors and innuendos and only considers the facts of this case and leave the biases out of this situation. And you know what? They could have reasonably made an argument that perhaps this trial should have been held somewhere else. Change of venue.
That definitely should have been the case, but I don't know, in the 70s, maybe
things were different back then?
Maybe they didn't care about that so much.
So, where am I?
This is where we learned that Sammy Jo is here. She's watching from the balcony, and she will be every day that we see the trial. So you failed, Marie, at keeping her home.
Yep. Sam ends up clutching his chest during this. He's obviously not doing well. He asks for a break as Al says there's a problem in the waiting room. He goes and takes off. This is where that deleted scene with Doc Kinnaman takes place, and where we see
Max Wright.
Max Wright, which credited in the episode. We don't actually see him in the version that we watched. Which is a shame. It would have been nice to see him. He doesn't look any older, which is funny because in the deleted scene he looks exactly the same age as. They didn't make any effort to age him up, but
maybe that's why they deleted it.
Maybe
because they were like, this doesn't look right.
All right, so as Sam drives home, he talks about taking his nitro pills. The first day didn't go very well. He ends up going back to the house. He talks to Sammy Jo and bonds over her photographic memory.
She's humming Mockingbird, by the way, when he comes in.
And she's talking about Brigadoon, which is completely different from what she was humming. But
she said it's her favorite book, Brigadoon, and Sam says he loves that book too. I've never read Brigadoon.
No, but apparently it has something to do with time travel.
It has something to do with time travel. Yeah.
So she ends up talking about time travel, which she says what she wants to do, which she says she wants to do that someday, which is ironic.
Yeah, she says she wants time travel, and the reason she wants time travel is so she can meet her daddy and tell him that she loves him, which I find a very odd statement, because the man she thinks is her daddy is not dead. Therefore, you do not need to time travel to ever meet him. You just need to, get in touch with him.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So Sammy brings up Laura, which makes Sam remember her. And Sam says he loves her, which should be a really confusing statement to Sammy Jo.
Yeah, it's like she just gives him this look, and it's perfect. It's like, okay, weird old man I met yesterday, I'm glad you love me.
You're right. But she still, even after this, still has affection for him, obviously.
I mean, she's really happy for what he's doing, but yeah, that's kind of creepy.
So yeah, she looks confused. She asks where he's going, and he says she's going to go tell his grandma that it's okay to remember her. Sam arrives to see Laura. Al wants him to take it easy because he has a mental and physical connection to Stan. They don't know why. But Sam insists that he has to talk to Laura, despite the fact that he might have a major coronary.
Yeah, so he's having Larry's heart condition. It's the same way last week he picked up Will's stutter.
Right.
So he's getting more and more connected with the host, which, kind of watching this season again and really looking at the advancement of how we're continually seeing more and more physical connections between the host and Sam. It almost kind of leans to where we end up in the revival, where we don't have a waiting room and we say it's the Leaper's body.
Okay.
It almost feels like there's a bridge there. It's not fully sealed, but it feels like I could build a case if we connect the gaps over the 30 years we don't see.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
It's like we have more and more of these type of things happening in season 5.
So he brings up Abigail. And she asks if he's in trouble, and maybe that's why she hasn't seen him in a while, or her in a while. Sam says that she needs her to remember her past. Alice says if she testifies, she will be disqualified, declared non-compos mentos, something along those
I
lines.
think you got that right, yeah.
Really? Did I say that right?
I think so.
Okay. Laura says she remembers Sam.
Yeah, even though she's never met Larry, she recognizes Sam. She knows who he is.
He was gonna marry her Abigail, but then he didn't, and he broke her heart. Laura says she has been waiting a long time, and when he came, Clayton said she would have to tell about Violet. She opens up her fist.
It takes off a glove because she's covered head to toe. She's wrapped in all white, gloves, a head wrap, scarf, the whole nine. She takes off a glove.
And she reveals that she has Violet's locket.
She has Violet's locket.
And her hand is...
in her burned hand.
Yes.
That Dave never noticed.
Right. Well, I noticed that her hand looked messed up, but I honestly kind of attributed that to holding the locket for so long.
She thought she was just holding the locket for 30 years.
Yes, that's how I took it. But, I mean, give me a break. I was 13 when I watched this episode originally. But yeah, that's how I took it. So Sam undoes her veil.
Yeah, he notices the burns on her hand.
Yes.
Takes the headscarf
Sam Beckett
off.
Is more observant than I am.
And reveals how her whole head is burned.
And her hair is very, very white. This scene creeped me the hell out as a kid.
Well, what it was supposed to do was confirm that she was in the fire.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not something that I ever understood until 3 weeks ago.
And she's humming Mockingbird.
Yes. Oof. And yeah, it's a very creepy scene. It definitely had an impact on me. It still does. Like, still watching the scene, it hits me the same way.
Yeah, I had goosebumps watching all of Meg Foster's scenes in this episode gave me goosebumps.
So Sam narrates as we see the courtroom. The doctor had said her confinement had been self-inflicted for years.
Which is another subtle hint that no one was stopping her when she would leave to go visit her daughter.
Right. That Clayton had forbidden her from telling her secret for 30 years.
Right, which says he knew everything.
Yes, so we're going to go back to that.
Yeah.
This is now the time to bring this conversation up. Yeah, so Clayton Fuller knew what happened to Violet.
Right. If he forbid her from telling her story, that means he knows the story.
Right. So, to protect his wife, which you could legitimately say that was an accident, because it was.
Right.
The story that we hear is an accident. You can very much claim that this was an accident. To protect his wife, he covers it up. But he screws over his daughter in the process.
Yeah, because she spends her whole life getting accused of it.
Not only that, but he denies Lita Ader and her husband closure because they never learned what actually happened to Violet.
Not only does he know what happened, he knows where her body is.
Yes.
He could have retrieved it.
Right.
He could have ended all of this, but instead what he does is he closes the case saying dogs ate her.
Yes. And by the way, I don't think he did his wife any favors.
I mean, he put her in an institution to keep her from talking.
Right. So
that's the reason she was institutionalized.
Yes.
You know, young Abigail told the story of that night that Violet went missing, and it was the bad storm was that night, and she heard her parents arguing and crying and yelling, and then her mommy went away.
Right.
He locked her up so she couldn't tell anybody that she killed a kid.
Yes. And in doing so, he caused a lot of the tragedy that happens throughout this trilogy. You could make the claim that he's the reason for all this stuff happening. That if he had just let Laura, tell the truth about what happened to Violet, none of this other stuff would be happening.
Perhaps. I mean, Bart might have still died.
I mean, sure.
Maybe
he died of a heart attack.
Maybe his heart would have been stronger if he had closure. We don't know.
I mean, you could say that easily, that grief and, not knowing what happened to his daughter could have been the very reason.
I mean, he was yelling at Abigail in the moment about Violet.
Yeah.
So
he
might have lived a little longer.
Yeah, and, you look at this and you see, well, Lita Ader certainly had some legitimate grievances towards...
I mean, she was right.
Yes.
That Clayton closed the case. And it was... What's the word when it's your family?
Nepotism?
Yes, it was nepotism.
Yes.
That was her argument, is he closed the case to protect his daughter. That wasn't true, but he did close the case to protect his wife.
And in doing so, screwed his wife over. So, let me ask you, do you, I'm going to ask, do you agree with Clayton Fuller's actions here?
I mean...
Do you understand his actions?
I understand he was trying to protect his family. I mean, the little girl was dead. There's nothing you
Yeah.
can do to bring her back. It was the wrong decision, though.
Yes. In protecting his family, he destroyed his family.
Right.
And then destroyed Lita Ader's
I mean,
family
if he was
as
going to
well.
have her institutionalized anyways, that's the worst thing that was going to happen
Yeah.
as a result of telling the truth, is they would have thought she was crazy and locked her up, which is what he did anyways.
So it's funny. This is a throwaway line. It's one line that is not dwelled upon, but it suggests so much.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that's on purpose too.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize how subtle this trilogy really is. Mm-hmm. And I think this is this whole thing is a great job by Deborah Pratt. Like, just suggesting things that flew straight over my head as a kid.
And it was just Clayton forbid her to tell her story.
Yeah.
But now she's going to tell it.
Yes.
And you know, the other thing that's also kind of weird and creepy is how when she was saying she recognized Sam, he was supposed to marry Abigail, she said, Clayton said he would come back, and then I'd have to tell about Violet.
Yes.
So what is that about? Did Clayton's ghost literally talk to Laura, or is she making that up?
I'm not sure.
She's like, Clayton told me you were going to come back, and then I'd have to tell about Violet. Like, just think about that line, how creepy that is. Her dead husband told her it's time to talk.
Right. I'm wondering if what she actually says is something along the lines, Clayton told me that you would come. So, is that something maybe he said to her when he was still alive for some reason?
Tell her what?
I don't know.
He didn't know Sam. He died.
Maybe he had some kind of premonition. But anyway, I think that Clayton's actions here is perhaps why God, time, and fate did not save Clayton. That that the God, time, or fate specifically had Clayton die for his sins. If that makes any sense.
Possibly.
Yeah. But okay, so we see a black and white flashback,
and all of these black and white flashbacks, so super creepy.
Yes.
This music that plays, and I don't know what that piece of music is. I don't know if it's something original, or if it's
nothing I'm familiar with. Yeah,
but it's perfect and super creepy. It fits the tone of the whole episodes. But it's that same music that we hear during all of the different flashbacks. We heard it, during the Violet and Abigail fight scenes. We're going to hear it later during the Lita death scene. The same music in all of the black and white flashbacks, and they just add so much to this same creepy weirdness.
Right.
And I love them.
Mm-hmm. So she begins to tell her story, how basically after Abigail beat up on her and she went away and she was angry, Violet ended up encountering Laura. Laura tried to calm her down, basically tried to get her to stop going to see her mother to tell on her, basically. And she ended up grabbing for her. She ended up falling down the well. The only thing that Laura managed to catch was the locket.
And before that, the sweater.
Right.
So Violet pulls away from her twice. The first time she pulls away, Laura gets her sweater. This is where the blood-covered sweater comes from. The only thing that they did recover is because Laura had it. But what Laura didn't give her husband is the locket. So the second time she caught up to Violet, tried stopping her, she falls backwards into the well. It is definitely an accident. Laura reaches to save her and just gets the locket. And hides the locket for the next 25 years.
Yes. Denton is not impressed by this story. He objects and yells, "This whole story is preposterous," and he ends up yelling at Laura, "Did you end up killing Lita Ader too?" And the judge is basically like, "Look, you'll get your chance to cross-examine." And then Sam goes to her, asks the question, "Did you kill Lita Ader?" And Laura's very confused by this question. She just kind of no.
And the courtroom goes in an uproar.
Right.
And I think the point is we can believe her because she's not being like, well, yeah, I'm going to take blame for anything you want to blame on me.
Right. So Sam is basically asked, well, what's the point of this questioning? And Sam says he wanted to prove that she is innocent of the crimes that the town has branded with her for 25 years. He starts to have another episode, but he wants to put Abigail on the stand. The judge is basically like, Denton hasn't had a chance to, to cross-examine this witness. Denton's like, I don't want to cross-examine.
Talk to that crazy lady.
Right. I want to,
You'd think he would want to talk to her.
Yeah.
To try and discredit her story a little bit and make her sound more crazy. But he's like, nah, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
Now, it's very important. The reason Sam wants to put Abigail on the stand, because it doesn't look like this was the plan. She was surprised that she's being called. Because you don't have to go on the stand in your own trial.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure only her lawyer could call her. I don't think Denton could call her. I think that's a rule.
Yeah.
But he sees the mail.
Yes.
He sees the mail, and he gets this idea in his head and puts it into action and calls her to the stand.
Yes.
Now, here's my thing. Should he not have actually opened that letter and checked that what he thinks is in there is actually in there before putting her on the stand and starting this?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if he somehow already knew.
He didn't know. He saw the letter. Okay, so he's getting Larry's pills out of the bag because he's having a little heart incident, and that's when he notices the stack of bills. And I have something to say about the bills, the letter too, which I'll get to in just a second. But he looks at it and comes up with this idea. Which, is what's going to blow this case open, right? But he's only guessing at what's inside there.
Right.
What if it wasn't there, the thing he thinks is there?
Right.
Shouldn't he have opened it and looked before start? Like, he literally doesn't open it until he's in the middle of this whole, testimony that he shouldn't be doing, because that's not how trials work.
Right. Well,
he should have, opened it first.
It's fine up until a point.
Yeah.
But, okay, so Stanton, the reason he doesn't, he basically gives for trying to get her testimony stricken from the record is the exact same thing that Al said Denton would do.
Right.
But basically, Abigail gets put on the stand.
Before we get into it, I do want to talk about this piece of mail.
Okay.
It is a bill from the Louisiana Telephone Company. We see a nice close-up of it. Baton Rouge is misspelled, R-O-U-G-H.
Okay.
So the return address is in Baton Rouge for the Louisiana Telephone Company. And then the address that it's addressed to is Abigail's house. Okay. So the zip code that's listed for Pottersville, which is 70821, in real life is a Baton Rouge zip code.
Gotcha.
And the zip code listed for Baton Rouge, 71839, is actually a zip code in Arkansas.
Okay.
So I don't know what they were doing when they wrote this mail. And again, it's another one of those things where they don't think you're going to stop and pause on a prop because
from 25 years ago.
They didn't think that was, going
to be a thing.
Right. That there's going to be people in 30 years pausing and reading newspaper articles and writing, internet databases and doing podcasts about this. Who would have ever guessed that in 1993?
Nope. Certainly not I. I wouldn't have guessed that in 1993 that I would be talking to Deborah Pratt,
right?
The writer of this episode as well. But there we go.
So,
all right. So Abigail gets put on the stand,
and we have a bailiff here.
Okay.
Lanier Edwards plays the bailiff.
Okay.
He was in one episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, 2 episodes of 7 Days, and 6 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
7 Days is another time travel show. Abigail puts her on the stand, or no, Sam puts Abigail on the stand and has Abigail recount the story. Abigail did not call anyone, and he has her look at the phone bill. Basically he's like, do you know what these are? And, basically Al was like, what are you doing here? But yeah. So, where am I? Okay. So he has her look at the phone bill, which has a call to the sheriff's office 20 or so minutes before she got home. Sam goes on a monologue, and this is where the whole trial thing goes
because he's not allowed to do anything right now except ask questions.
Right. Yeah.
Every word that comes out of his mouth needs to be in question format, like he's on Jeopardy.
Right.
He's not allowed to just talk to the jury.
Right. That would happen in a closing and opening statement.
Right.
He's not allowed to do that here. But so Sam goes on this monologue about how Lita Hayter, being told she had no case, that imagine how that felt, blah, 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 blah. He believes that she became incensed. She went to Abigail's house to confront her. She was not home. She started going nuts, and then she picks up a knife, and in a dark place in her mind, she slit her throat. And Al, at this point, realizes, just like Laura's mother. The court explodes. The judge calls for order. The judge should have been speaking up way before now. Sammy Joe starts screaming, saying that she remembers, and she comes down yelling. She remembered, and we see a flashback of Lita Ader trashing the kitchen through the perspective of Sammy Jo, and then cutting her own throat.
Right, Sammy Jo witnessed the whole thing.
And again, none of this would have been allowed. If you wanted to put Sammy Jo on the stand to tell the story, fine.
Right, and this just ends the case.
Right,
like
yeah.
Sammy Jo says she saw it. We
Yeah.
have a witness, and they're just like, okay, I guess.
All right,
case is thrown out.
Right. Dan, of course, objects, but that doesn't matter.
Like the whole courtroom's just like, oh, we know the truth now.
Right.
Media really makes you think this is how life works.
Right.
And it doesn't.
It does not.
One thing to point out is during this, we did get the actual date of Lita Ader's death. She died on May 15th, because Abigail was told to recount the events of May 15th. The episode takes place on July 28th. So it was 2.5 months ago.
Which is still speedy.
It's still speedy, but it's not last week.
Right, yeah.
Now, also with this, I have the opposite problem as I did originally when they were saying a week ago. And my thought was, would a phone call from a week ago even be on a bill already? Now I have the opposite problem. Would a phone call from 2.5 months ago be on this bill that she just got?
Right, probably not.
Probably not. It would have to be a 2-month-old bill. And again, Sam didn't even check to see if that's what's in this envelope.
Right. So Al tells him he changed history, and Sam asks if they are going to be okay. Al says that now that he's cleared Abigail and Sammy Jo is carrying his genes, the curse is broken. So somehow having Sam Beckett's genes ends the curse to this family.
Yeah, so first off with that, I doubt Ziggy would believe in a curse.
Right.
Ziggy's the computer, has logic.
Right.
Ziggy believes in facts, not curses. So there's that. But what does Sam's genes have to do with breaking the curse?
I don't know.
If we're saying the last 3-4 women in this female line have been cursed, they all had genes of my father.
Right.
They all had another bloodline coming into the mix. Each and every generation did. Mm-hmm. So what's special about Sam's genes that break the curse?
I don't know. But Al says that Abigail's married somewhere.
In 2 years, and they moved to Chicago. And she's really, really happy.
And then Sam's like, well, how do you know all this? Okay, first of all, how does Al know any of the information he has at the end?
He should know, yes, she moved. But it's the way that he was like, and she's really, really happy, Sam. That's the part that's like, how do you know she's happy?
Okay. So,
that's not in a database anywhere.
All right. So Al knows knows this because Sammy Jo told him. Sammy Jo is working with them on Quantum Leap and has a theory about how to get him home. Sam asks if she knows that he is her father. Nope. And Ziggy says that after this leap, neither will he. Okay, how the hell does Ziggy know exactly what memories he's going to lose?
How does Ziggy know he's not going to remember?
Right.
And also, how does Sammy Jo, working on the project deeply enough that she has a theory on bringing him home, so she's a scientist on the project.
Yes.
How does she not know anything about his last 3 leaps?
Right.
She would not be involved in the cases at all.
Right.
It sounds like she's really deep if she's planning a way to get him home.
That's interesting. Sam ended up sleeping with my mother around the time I was conceived.
So yeah, it would have been kept from her that he leaped into her family 3 times.
Right.
Then also my brain starts doing this thing where I'm trying to figure out, well, from her perspective though, none of that stuff ever happened.
Right. But if it didn't
because
happen,
Abigail didn't die,
right?
So there wouldn't have been a reason for the time traveler she knows to go to the life.
Yes.
So, what is there for her not to know?
If Sam doesn't, if Abigail doesn't die or does die in the second leap, then Sammy Jo does not exist.
Exactly. But in the reality where she does exist and she's working on the project, this is how it always happened.
Yes.
So the history that Sam's there to fix didn't happen.
Right.
In her reality.
Yes.
And then my head exploded trying to figure out how that would work.
I'm not going to try.
And
I think I'm going to stay out of that rabbit hole.
And I wrote, head exploding in a quantum bubble.
Okay, so Sam declares that he will know. He will always know. Okay. And Sammy Jo runs up to him to give him a hug, the creepy guy, the creepy old guy who said that he loves her for no reason at all, after knowing her for 2 seconds. And Sam emotionally says to take care of herself, and then she says that she will never forget him. And as she does so, Sam leaps.
Sam leaps.
And that is the end.
He leaves
of the
home
episode.
ish.
Yes. He leaves Indiana.
He leaps into Elkridge, Indiana.
Elkridge, Indiana, yes.
Promised Land is the next episode.
Yes.
Now, I do want to point out, he said this very emotional goodbye to Sammy Joe.
Mm-hmm.
He does not say goodbye to Abigail.
That is interesting.
What's interesting is I want to point out, this is not some grand romance between Sam and Abigail.
Mm-hmm.
That's never what it was.
Right.
Sam felt like he's in love with this woman, and this is something that we didn't really talk a lot about when we were doing part 2, which is the problems people have with this series, the people who don't like Trilogy. The whole thing of, there was no consent, and she didn't know who he was, and they were sleeping together, and he was her dad last week.
Okay, the whole consent
and all of
issue.
This,
the whole consent issue is a modern day problem that was not something they were really talking about in 1992.
right. But the fact is, that's the case with every leap.
Yes.
And literally every, and he doesn't sleep with a lot of people.
No.
But a couple times he did.
Mm-hmm.
Al, the one time he leaped, he's immediately jumping in bed with somebody.
Yes, of course.
And if he was a leaper, it would have been every chance he gets, regardless if those people were couples or not.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, it's okay if you don't love that aspect of it, because that's not the point. The point isn't that this is some great romance. We're not saying Sam and Abigail were meant to be and they're in love. It's okay that she doesn't know who he is. The point of the story is Sammy Joe. This is about him and Sammy Joe. It's about creating this person. This super smart scientist who has a theory on how to bring him home.
Which a lot of people do not love that either. They don't like Sammy Joe as a character. I'm not totally sure why exactly, but the Sammy Joe character is controversial. And, when people, I remember reading this in the Alice Plays Quantum Leap, forums. A lot of people, when they heard about the possibility of a revival with Sammy Joe as a character, which for years they were talking about making a movie. Deborah Spratt still wants to do that.
Right.
That's going to be a topic of conversation, I'm sure, when we talk to her. Like at least half of the people in the forums are like, no, I don't want to see that.
Right. I think that comes down to half of the people in the fandom hate Trilogy.
Yes.
And hate the whole story of Sam fathering a child.
Yes.
And having this relationship with Abigail. But I want them to look at it from a perspective of that's not what it is. No one was ever saying he had some great romance with Abigail. If you want to say he had a great romance, he had a great romance with Tamlin. She knew who he was. Sure, you can talk about that. But here, that's not what it is. It was about the fate of him being attached to this woman for her life and protecting her so that they could bring this new person into the world.
Now, I can see someone having an objection to basically turning Sam Beckett into a time-traveling deadbeat father. It's the same kind of thing that I was talking about when we were
he hired her
Yes.
to come work at the project.
Yeah.
You got to give him that.
Fair enough, but I don't think at that point that he knew that he was
Well, it's a
actually the
history
father.
he didn't actually live through.
Right, yeah.
But it happened in her reality.
Right.
Like, they knew each other before he left, you would assume.
But it's one of the reasons why I was sort of not wanting Ben to be Jeffrey's father in the revival, because I didn't want him to be basically this deadbeat father who is never around,
Right.
and basically just kind of leaves Hannah to raise his child by herself,
Right.
basically. But
I mean, I think that's fixed by the fact that Sam didn't know about her, literally. This happened one day apart for him.
Right.
She's conceived, and here she is 12, and then we're told, point blank, you're going to forget she exists.
right,
It's gone from your memory. Poof.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
erasing it somehow.
yes,
He doesn't know.
right,
He's not doing it on purpose, and also obviously has zero control over it. And the fact that he chooses not to come home, he doesn't know about her. He doesn't know about his wife. He doesn't know about his daughter. They don't tell him ever again. If he doesn't remember these things, he's just like, I'm a time traveling hero, and that's what I'm destined to do is help people.
right.
They never are like, Sam, you have a family at home.
I'm willing to bet, and maybe this is a question that we did ask, that Deborah Pratt, if Quantum Leap had continued, that Sammy Joe would have been more of a character.
I would assume she
Yeah.
would have at least been mentioned, if not shown,
right.
in season 6.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, we never hear about her again in the canon of the series.
Right.
Which is so sad.
She does appear non-canon in
She appears
other
in
media.
several novels, including in Christopher's novel Foreknowledge.
Yes.
But it's not canon.
Right.
It's, sub-canon.
Yes. I think I would really like to see. Of course, I would, because I'd love anything Quantum Leap related coming out. But yeah, of course, I would love Deborah Pratt to get her dream and actually have a Scott Bakula, Sammy Joe project, because I think there's a lot of dramatic material that could be mined from that.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as I know, she invented Sammy Joe with a bigger story in mind for her.
Yeah.
Like, this was always the plan to do more with her, and it's never been realized.
Right, because the show got canceled, unfortunately. But
twice.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm not even sure if a new series had continued, whether they would have ever addressed Sammy Joe, if that's even something Deborah Pratt would have wanted to happen, because I think she wanted to do her own thing. She wanted
to do it with Scott.
Yes.
Right? And I think if he'd agreed to do the revival, then
maybe
she might have been on board to do it there.
Yeah.
That would have been a medium to do her story.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Nope. All right. Do we have anything else to say before concluding?
Let's see. Did we talk about all of our actors? We did. The only uncredited listing this week was for Mary Gordon Murray as Leah Ader. Of course, Melora Hardin reprised adult Abigail. We talked about everybody else. Heather Lauren Olsen had an actual credited role this week for Violet. Previously, she was uncredited.
Yes.
But this is where we actually got to see her talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a great story. I love it. It's not perfect.
No.
Nothing's perfect. That's what we do here, is we rip apart all the things we love. And it makes me kind of sad that that's what we do, but that's what we do.
I mean, like, I've said this before, but just being a cheerleader for things and saying, rah, rah, this is great, doesn't interest me.
Right.
Like, I like to pick things apart. I like to talk about things I would do differently.
Yeah.
And, of course, talk about the things I love as well.
Right.
But, yeah.
But all in all,
Yeah.
love the story. I will always maintain that Trilogy is my favorite Quantum Leap story. And I think all of the actors do an amazing job bringing these characters to life.
Yep.
And if you want to hear more about it, we're going to be back again next week with our interview with Deborah.
Yes, that will be in place of our usual podcast. Instead of a Quantum Leap episode, we will be talking with Deborah Pratt about this trilogy.
Visiting Trilogy for week number 4. And then we'll move on with the rest of the season after that.
All right. We'd like to hear from you. What do you think of this podcast? What do you think of this trilogy? Any comments that you make will be talked about in the next podcast after the Deborah Pratt interview a couple weeks from now. Stacie, we reached out.
You can reach on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, the number of ways to do so, you can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Blue Sky. I'm not even really sure about my social media situation. I explained that last week. But you can also buy me a coffee, join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. If you wanted to see the interview that we have going on next week early, you can do that if you do the early release part of the membership. And, of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions signing off.